Well arrived, everyone. Well arrived to Monday. Monday, the start of the last week of 9.1. Because from next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, it is when 9.2 will launch. So, in this last week of 9.1, after almost 8 months of this patch, we have yet another change worth mentioning that Blizzard went over. Yet again, a change arriving thanks to some player feedback based on what they essentially complained about. And this is about reputation. Once again, reputation gaining has been quite a topic of discussion recently, between unlocking flying, unlocking your double legendary, unlocking the crafting of your second legendary, and all this list of things. Blizzard has been changing quite a bit the way all of this is going to work. So we had a few days ago the, I guess, confusing change about tying even more reputation to killing rares. So there are almost 30 rares in Revered Mortis, and Blizzard put a bunch of rep on them, and because they were not gated, they were not limited other than a daily reset, essentially now what they wanted to make you do as a fastest way to gain reputation was to kill 29 rares every day to get as much rep as you possibly could, with the split of possible reputation for the day being about 66% rare farming and then just 33% of world quests. So the important part tied to reputation and tied to the so-called time gating that will happen in 9.2 is that in week 1 you complete chapters 1, 2 and 3 of the story and basically nothing happens. In week 2 you complete chapter 4, also still nothing is happening, and then in week 3 you unlock chapter 5. This is the chapter you need to complete to earn your flying, and up to this point still nothing is happening. Mythic Raid has just launched. Week 4, the start of the last week of the month of 9.2, you get to complete chapter 6, and then finally on week 5, at the start of the third reset of Mythic Raiding, you get to complete Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is what is going to award you your belt, your Covenant Legendary Belt, which is going to change the Covenant effect automatically based on the Covenant you choose to be. Now, this was previously tied to Revered Reputation. So it wasn't just about chilling and doing the 7 chapters of the story to get to your legendary, it was instead tied to grinding reputation. So Blizzard changed this to make it much more easy, not giving you any stress in needing to min-max reputations to get your second legendary, so this was already a good change. But then the question was still about reaching Revered to be able to acquire the memory of Unity. Memory of Unity being important because it is the memory to allow you to craft your Covenant Legendary in whichever piece you want. Perhaps you don't want your Covenant Legendary in your belt, which is what is going to be given to you for free. Maybe in your belt you want to craft your own Legendary, your own normal Legendary. Maybe in the first week of Mythic or the second week of Mythic, or perhaps from the Great Vault of Mythic Plus, you get offered a very high item level belt. So you really wanted to replace this Covenant Legendary if you could. The problem is, of course, that the memory of Unity is going to be tied to reputation, to Revered, and Blizzard just changed it to require you to grind a bunch of rares, making it very annoying, very grindy over the course of the first few weeks of the patch. So, the point in question for the day is the change that Blizzard is going to apply to the reputation of Revered Mortis. The announcement starts as follows. People shouldn't feel like they need to play every day, and people shouldn't feel like when they play, the incentives don't steer people towards the fun. So yeah, we hear the community concerns with overweighting the rares when it comes to reputation. When rares constitute the lion's share of the total rep you can gain every day, as we said, basically 2/3, 66% of the rep available, that can create a sense of obligation to pursue them all. Since there are so many, this turns the daily acquisition of rep into a time-consuming process rather than something you can target and complete, or mostly complete, in a reasonable play session. We want rares to feel like a bonus rather than an obligation. So, the reputation earned from rares is being decreased by roughly 50%. Along with that change, because we don't want to reduce the total incoming reputation, we are going to increase the reputation of the other sources of rep in Revered Mortis to compensate. So, world quests are going to award 25 more rep each, the world boss is going to reward a 250 rep extra, and then the double weekly quest is also going to reward 250 rep extra. The net effect of this is that this will be a small increase in the total reputation available each day, and rares will take up a much lower proportion of those gains. It will allow players to feel like they can be done for the day earlier without significant long-term cost, while still allowing the players who want to push harder for some, earlier rep gains to do so still. So with this, you are roughly gaining 750 extra rep every week, thanks to the world boss and the double weekly, as well as a series 25 extra rep per world quest you can complete every day that is going to be available in Zereth Mortis. The most important part of the change is that players who feel the need to reach Revered by week 5 and get the legendary memory as soon as chapter 7 ends should now be able to rest assured. Even without killing a single rare, it should be comfortably achievable to reach that level in that time frame. So this is the significant change of the day when it comes to reputation. We have gone a long way since the first initial announcements. We were talking about requiring 55 days to get to Revered being tied to getting your legendary. But not just that, not just having to wait 55 days, actually having to grind Zereth Mortis for this long. And then, as we kept going further into the PTR, we started getting more and more positive, changing towards reducing quite a bit of the grind required to actually get your stuff, the stuff that you wanted, from flying, which is still, I'm sure, a thing most players will be interested in, into the actual cool power-ups of your character being the double legendary. So with this change, to be fair, the legendary belt also loses a lot of value, because while it is still true that, as I said the first time we got the change, you can literally hibernate yourself for the first 28 days of the patch, come online on the 29th day, the start of the 5th reset, do 7 chapters of the story in a row and get your legendary belt, so that is still quite possible to do. It loses a lot of value, because now, if you actually kept playing throughout the patch, if you kept playing since the release, done your world quests, your double weekly quests, and your world boss every week without any rare, you will be able to get the memory to craft the legendary at the same time that you will be given your free legendary belt. Now, why is this relevant? Izen, you said you might not want to keep your belt if, for example, you have a legendary to craft in your belt, or if you loot a high item level upgrade on your belt. What if I don't get any of this? What if I don't need my belt slot for my normal legendary, and what if I don't get an upgrade from the raid, for example, in the belt slot? Why would I need to craft a different Covenant legendary with the memory of Unity rather than keeping my freebie Covenant legendary given in the belt? The reason is the item level. As we said, yes, you will be getting a free Covenant legendary in the belt once you complete chapter 7, but that legendary will be 265 item level. Once you get the memory, once you go to the rune carver and give them this memory of Unity, you will be able to craft your Covenant legendary like any other legendary. And since it's a new patch and the item level is increasing, the new legendary item level that you will be able to craft it at is going to be 291, not the base 265 that you will have the legendary belt that will be given to you. So it is going to be a significant 26 item level increase compared to the belt. Of course, it also gains more value because you can craft this very high item level piece in one of those slots with tons of stats, like the helmet, like the shoulders, like the chest, for example. These are always pretty filled with stats, so crafting a very high item level in those slots is going to be very beneficial, also for stats, not just for the legendary effect itself. So it is definitely a positive change. Once again, a very weird series of positive changes. Remember when I said I started to get spooked because Blizzard was gathering too many Ws, too many wins in a row, and something terrible was going to happen? Well, it did happen once they tied a lot of the rep available to the rares, but then they pulled a U-turn, they pulled a 180, and they still made that change a positive one, removing a lot of the importance of the rares for your daily the activities in Revered Mortis for the rep, and then just tying it to things you have been doing for years, basically the world quests, is definitely going to make you feel much easier for you. The content you have to do every day, if you want to play, if you feel the need to play every day, is going to be much more deterministic. You log in, you open the map, you see the world quests, and you complete them. You don't have to start going on a merry hunt of 29 different rares every day to feel like you did your part in powering up your character because you need a reputation. So it's gonna feel much more fulfilling every day to be in Revered Mortis if you actually get to complete the things you wanted to in a reasonable amount of time, let's say half an hour. I consider open world activities that last at best 30 minutes a good maximum time. You know, longer than 30 minutes it starts getting a little bit tiring, okay? So if we can keep the chores, the everyday chores, to about 30 minutes, it's bearable, it's fine. The other change that is worth mentioning a little bit, even though it doesn't have anything to do with character power, so you don't have to worry about that, is the change to flying. So we said that one of the other wins of Blizzard was to remove flying from the Cypher system. Instead, now they made flying a meta achievement. There is a series of very simple achievements you have to do to get the flying in Revered Mortis. Things like exploring Revered Mortis, things like discovering 5 hidden treasures, things like defeating 10 rares, okay? Very simple stuff. The only time gate behind the flying is to complete chapter 5 of the story, which will be available 3 weeks in. So basically, flying unlocks 21 days into the patch. That's what it means. The change related to this flying is the Cypher of the First One's system itself. Because if you remember, the first time flying was introduced, flying was announced, this was how you were going to get flying. You essentially had to acquire Cypher of the First One's currency to unlock the upgrades of the Cypher system, wait for the time it took them to research those upgrades, and then eventually get to unlock flying. Even though this time, more or less, was still going to be about 3 weeks, about 21 days, which is basically the same amount of time you have to wait now for flying. The difference is, of course, that you had to, number 1, start gathering that Cypher currency, number 2, start waiting for the upgrades in the Cypher system. Instead, now, you simply get your flying by waiting for chapter 5 and doing some very simple achievements. The difference and the addition is that now the Cypher system is not going to have a timer tied to the upgrades. Because, of course, pretty much the only reason for those timers to exist in the first place was to time gate flying. So, since Blizzard moved flying, the unlocking of flying away from this system, you no longer need to have all of these upgrades being tied behind even upwards of 6 days of research time. So one of the other positives of removing flying, the unlocking of flying from the Cypher system, is that now the Cypher system is also going to be better, since it's not going to have all of these very long upgrade research timers. So this was the main change to start the week with, this last week of 9.1. I am pretty sure we're going to get a few more changes along the way in the next 10 or so days that keep us from the release of 9.2. I know many people are waiting, perhaps hoping at this point, to get some more last-minute balance tuning changes for their specs. But this one was also a good one. It was a pretty good change to now make your crafted Covenant Legendary unlock at week 5, just like the normal Legendary, except at a much higher possible item level you can craft. So it's going to be a pretty good change for all of the characters, all of the players who are going to play at, at a high enough level, Mythic Plus, Raid Encounters, perhaps PvP, who wanted to get the max possible power for their character. This is a good change because it's not going to tie it to too much of a, I would say, a tiring and frustrating grind in the open world with all of that rare hunting. So it's definitely another positive change for 9.2. So we're going to have to wait and see if any more changes come along the way right before the release. For now, this is all for this Monday. as usual, the worst day of the week. Thank you guys, of course, for watching the video and for helping to contribute to the channel. You can also do more by liking on the video as well as commenting down below as usual. And also, as is tradition, you can also subscribe to the channel. The subscription button for today, I've been told, is only open to everyone who woke up no more than 3 hours ago. Thank you guys anyways. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, this is mostly because it is also true for me, as I woke up about, 3 hours ago.